commence the meeting since we do have a quorum. So we'd wait till about 7:15. Let me ask if there are any motions with respect to the minutes.
How about a motion to approve?
That would be a good motion.
I'll second.
You got it.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item of business is the planned development at 1211 Chicago Avenue, which is also known as the Trader Joe proposal. And if you don't mind, and we could wait a few minutes for Commissioner Asaro so that he can hear all of the testimony, then we'll go forward. About 5 minutes. There's been some additional submittals, possible changes, so I'm going to ask one of the city staff to discuss the recent submittals and additions to the record.
Craig Spinard.
Tess. Craig Sklenar, General Planner. We've met a few times with the applicant and neighbors who voiced concern at the July Plan Commission meeting to address some of the site planning issues and concerns. In a moment, will have Alderman Nguyen provide a overview of those concerns and how we've addressed them. For submittal tonight, there's a final copy of the traffic plan or the transportation study that does not show any differential from the draft plan that was provided in the plan development application. There is a revised site plan submitted to you as well, and a memorandum concerning property values that Chairman Peters has a copy of as well. At this time, I'll have Alderman Nguyen provide a quick overview of the process in the last 3 weeks.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Nguyen. I'm the alderman for the 3rd Ward. In the month or so since we all were last here, we've had a number of meetings and exchanges between the community members and Terrico and city staff and me about a number of the issues that the neighbors raised that were of concern at the last meeting. I'm coming before you tonight because I think as of last night we have reached agreement on every issue that is of concern to the neighbors and to me, and I'd like to walk through these issues and so that the Planning Commission can hear what we've done with them and what Terrico and the community have done with them, and the community is asking that a number of these things be included in the PUD, and Terrico's representative Scott Gendel and Kevin Gaisley have agreed to all of these items. So if you don't mind, I'll walk through all of this. The first issue, this is in no particular order, so when I say the first issue, it's not the most important, but they're all valuable. With respect to site design, the community was concerned about the landscaping, and as was I, and the resolution of that is that Terrico has provided an enhanced landscaping plan for the site, including vines to be planted along the east wall, and Terrico has agreed to plant trees of at least a 5-inch caliper. Landscape plans will be included in the PD ordinance to ensure a landscape plan is completed as promised. The next item is the east lot line wall. The neighbors were concerned about what that material would be and how it would be constructed. Terrico will construct an 8-foot-high wall comprised of a manufactured stone material, compatible materials with building materials to be as the building is supposed to be constructed. This 8-foot wall will include sound attenuation materials. The community has had lengthy discussions with the representatives of Terrico about the type of wall that can be built, and we are satisfied that a manufactured stone material wall is the best solution here. The next item is that the neighbors and I were concerned about the impact of the traffic generated by the development. Terrico and the city staff are reviewing a traffic impact study, and I think you'll hear more about that this evening. The neighbors were concerned about lighting, like anyone is next to a large commercial operation. Terrico has provided a light plan and study for the neighbors to review. Terrico will work with the city staff to assess required lighting for security purposes for the parking lot in off hours. Terrico will also work with Trader Joe's to identify the specs for lighting and make sure it is directed away from the residential uses. And as you all probably know, lighting has come a long way just in the last few years, and so I'm confident that we will come up with a lighting solution that works for both Trader Joe's and for the community. The alley usage was of great concern. Terrico has agreed that the site plan will not permit alley usage for deliveries or garbage collection. This restriction will also be included in the PD ordinance for Trader Joe's and all future uses of this property. With respect to the construction, the neighbors were concerned about what the hours of construction are. The city staff and I explained that we have city code with respect to this, and that construction hours are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock on Saturdays. The next issue was neighbors would like to understand how general conditions of construction site will be managed. Terrico will be making its best efforts to minimize the local impact, keeping as much activity and parking on site as possible, and renting temporary off-site parking during the construction period as necessary. And prior to the permit issuance, staff will work with Terrico and their selected construction company to make sure that work is done in accordance with plans and does not place extraordinary burden on residents or businesses. As you all know, this is a standard procedure with the city of Evanston, and we wanted just to make sure it was in the PD ordinance. With respect to hours of delivery, Terrico has agreed that the hours of delivery will be between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. That's 2 hours prior to the store opening and 1 hour after the store closes to permit deliveries to the store. All deliveries must occur through a loading dock enclosure with a door closed after the truck has entered the enclosure. The door for the loading dock will be maintained in a closed position at all times when the truck is not entering or exiting the loading berth or within the enclosure. Specific language governing this use will be included in the PD ordinance. This was a significant issue. We came to resolution on it last night. The neighbors were very concerned about having a 6 a.m. delivery, and Terrico's solution to this is to build an entirely enclosed loading berth with a door that closes after the truck backs into the loading dock. And with that, the neighbors and I have agreed that that would, under those terms, a 6 a.m. delivery would be permissible, but no trucks on the lot before 6 a.m. And that's critically important, is that we don't have a truck idling, waiting for the door to open. And I think that's a key point for the community. It kind of defeats the purpose of having an enclosed loading dock if the driver arrives early. There were several more issues. With respect to garbage removal, the garbage will be stored within the loading dock enclosure, and the garbage removal trucks will access the site from Chicago Avenue, not from the alley, and there will be specific language regarding that within the PD ordinance. The next issue is property maintenance and pest control. The Terrico principals have been involved in millions of square feet of successful property management, and they will manage this property to the highest standard that they maintain elsewhere. And Terrico city staff and I will work with the management to ensure clear lines of communication between the neighbors and the Trader Joe's store management, so that if there are any issues arise, they can be dealt with very quickly and clearly. The last issue is compressor noise, HVAC noise. The compressors will be located in the center of the building and will be enclosed with a sound attenuating mechanical hut that will have sound attenuating materials. So I think you can see from that list that enormous progress has been made, and we've really had a lot of very good communication and agreement on a number of these issues. And I think that this is something, I'm speaking as an alderman, in my experience where we've always had the greatest conflicts are when we have two zoning districts immediately next to each other with very different uses. I think that this demonstrates how we can have two very different uses across an alley from each other and arrive at a peaceful coexistence, which is always our goal in Evanston. So I would also ask that, if possible, if the Plan Commission could feels confident enough that it could vote on this tonight, that would be very helpful for everyone involved in the process. And I believe we have one community member who'd like to speak as well. And I'll answer any questions if you have any right now.
Thank you. Any questions for the alderman?
Did you want to hear from the community member right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the developer has made a lot of concessions on this, and it also appears that that is due to his their willingness to work with the community to actually move forward.
That's very true.
The wall that Scott has agreed to, you don't see anything like that on Chicago Avenue.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Whole Foods doesn't have that.
No, I live right behind Whole Foods.
They don't have that. And I think there's another store on that strip that also doesn't have it. So if this is put up, it is going to be the new standard now. Because this is far more costly than a regular wooden fence with galvanized posts. So it seems to be a lot of concession just to attenuate sound. I
yes.
know what this does. I know what this will do, but it's raising the bar for anybody else who shows up here wanting to build in that strip.
I think that's true. It's not. We're not codifying it. I think that whenever we have a new use, for instance, Whole Foods came in while I was alderman, and they do not have alley use at all for that store. Their garbage does not come. Trucks do not come to the alley, and their delivery trucks don't come through the alley. That was the standard that was applied here at Trader Joe's. There is a fence, a continuous fence behind Whole Foods. There was a recognition back then that there were single-family homes, residential, right across the alley, and the impact of having a grocery store was going to be significant. And so the concession that Whole Foods made was a continuous fence. We've learned other things about living across, having residential immediately across from a grocery store, and I think Trader Joe's and Terrico have been terrific partners in this in terms of making all of these proposals, hearing the concerns of the neighbors and coming forward with their best efforts in terms of what they can do for the site. I'm not asking that the stone fence become
The standard.
But I'm saying that I think that this is an example of where we can maintain the property values on both sides of that zoning line, which is this commercial site is going to be very, very viable, and it's an important one for Evanston. And just as important to us is that the residents living across the alley still get to enjoy their homes, whether it's single-family homes or multifamily.
I just have one quick question. This fence is this fence look the same on both sides? Okay, thanks.
So I think the way to proceed is to let the petitioner talk about what they're going to do and get that into evidence.
Yes, that's it.
And then the neighbors to talk about how they evaluated at this point.
Yes, Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let me ask everyone who's going to testify to raise their right hand and affirm that they will tell the truth and the whole truth to the commission. No.
Does my oath of office work as that?
I like that idea.
You pass Lake Cook. Lake Cook, going to 44. That's this. Yeah.
We need the lights dimmed.
Yeah, actually, that would be helpful.
Can I do that from here?
Thank you. So this has been a process of working together as a community, working together with the administration, trying to figure out what areas of sensitivity were out there relative to our neighbors. We're going to be entering into, and we have already entered into, a very long-term lease with Trader Joe's. They're going to be at this location for decades to come, and many of these residents will be as well, and even their successors will benefit and be neighbors to this grocery store, and it's really important that we address these things up front and go forward together. With respect to the solid wall, artesian precast or similar product, what we found was that a product like this was a far better product than a wood fence in terms of sound attenuation. We thought it was an attractive product. Yes, it's infinitely more expensive, but you're worth it. We felt like this was the right thing to do, and I think that throughout this process, our neighbors have felt like whenever possible, we were going to do what was right. One of the things that we did without really being prodded by the neighbors, and they didn't specifically ask for it, was to bring garbage on site and not have to deal with the alley and the garbage pickups in the alley. And I think that was an important step for us and for the neighbors, and we were able to design it so that the loading area could accommodate refuse as well, and that's what we did. So we're eliminating those garbage trucks, which would have been daily pickups from that alley, and I think it was an important issue to resolve and go forward on. Hours of delivery was critically important to Trader Joe's, and they needed to unload during off hours, and that was a point of contention between us and the neighbors, and it took a lot of compromise on both of our parts to come up with a solution which would ameliorate some of their concerns and allow us to move forward on an area that was of absolute and critical importance to us in this development. And the way we did that, essentially, was to create an enclosed loading area with door that would essentially become part of the building, and that loading would take place within that loading area, and we were able to fit it onto the site after much consternation on the part of our architects and engineers. It took us probably 2.5 weeks to figure out how to engineer it, and it took some internal engineering as well, but I think it's a good solution, and it addresses the problem of noise when unloading. The rooftop mechanicals, we originally came to this commission and said that we would review this in a year, and that we didn't feel that it was going to be an issue given the state of technology and the noise emanating from our rooftop units. The neighbors asked us to address this sooner rather than later with a sound attenuating material. Now, the compressor itself, where's Michael? The compressor itself has always been in a hut, correct?
The compressors that drive the refrigeration equipment have always been.
Yes. So that was not an issue because those were always going to be contained. With respect to the mechanical units, the HVAC units, that was something that we were going to address a year from now. If there was a problem with the noise from those units, we were going to come back and use a sound attenuating material to enclose those and put 4 kind of mini fence walls around it. The neighbors asked if we would address that now rather than a year from now. We looked at the cost of doing that. We looked at the benefit in doing it now rather than later, and the goodwill that it hopefully engendered with them, and we decided to do it now rather than later. The vines along the alley fence, we'll give it some character, and we always look for that whenever possible. I've seen it done with these type of artisan precast fences, and it does look nice, and it does give it a little character that you don't ordinarily see. Relative to Commissioner Asaro's request for an appraisal study, we've done that. You have that in your possession. As you can see, the conclusion there was that property values would not be negatively impacted, and in fact would probably rise as a result of the Trader Joe's being in that location. We studied the angled parking, and Mike, why don't you?
We had looked at rearranging the parking to use angled stalls, and that led to a loss of 6 to 7 spaces. And we did try to expand as many stalls as we could where we had room. So 64 of the 81 stalls will be 8 foot 9 inches wide.
Right. So even though we technically met code at 8 foot 6, we took your suggestion to heart relative to doing what we could to expand the size of the stalls, and we were able to actually expand the 64 stalls that would be most used in the development to 8 foot 9 inches. You have a copy of the photometric study. It shows no spillage of light towards the residential area. Security lights should be available on site at a minimal level. We'll work with staff and the neighbors, and if there is any problem with the security lighting in terms of, I can't imagine a problem, but if there is, we'll fix it, and that I promised you guys under oath. Signage lighting that would be turned off 1 hour after closing. Our sign on that faces north is actually angled a little bit northwest, so it doesn't really impact the neighbors as much as other signs which are perpendicular to the residential behind it. Next, please. As you can see, site planning, from a site planning standpoint, there were a couple things that we did on the landscape side. We thought we'd have to eliminate those 2 tree islands there and there. Instead, what we did was we made a decision that instead of planting canopy trees there, we'd plant trees that were, what's it? Columnar trees, thank you. I'll get that one of these days. Columnar trees there. So we were able to keep 4 trees there. And again, we've stipulated that all trees on site will be a minimum of 5-inch caliper. I don't know if we had already added that tree in the far southeast corner of the site, or actually the northeast corner of the building, but we have a tree there as well. And then what we did was, we're going to eventually own the building to the north, and we're going to plant a tree on that side of the lot line there, which will have a nice effect, and that can be a canopy tree there as well. In terms of the perspective, you can see in the middle perspective the enclosed dock there. It's about 14 and a half feet high. It
needs to be 14 foot clear inside.
Oh, clearance.
For the truck, and then, so it'll be
18 feet.
The structure will be above.
So it'll be 18 feet, the structure. We're trying to use elements there, both on the building and the enclosed dock that are compatible materials. And you had a term of art for the materials on that side of the building.
We'd look to use a cast masonry product that would be both compatible with the building and with the precast wall that is the east wall of the site.
I don't think I want to try to match the color of the enclosure with the precast fence, though. I think that there needs to be enough of a distinction there. Otherwise, it looks like a bad suit and pants. So we'll try to have some distinction between the colors of those two materials. But in any event, they'll be compatible with the rest of the building materials, and from a color standpoint, they'll work. Have we made any other changes to the building?
No.
And is this our last slide? That concludes our presentation for this evening. I'm certainly open to questions. We have our traffic.
The record should show that there is a letter signed by Joseph Ryan dated August 6th, which is an appraisal that's been referred to, and that becomes part of the record. There is a site plan dated July 23rd, 2012, which is part of the record, and we should probably have the date of the exhibit that's now displayed so that it's clear what's part of the record.
Yeah. It may not be, I'm not sure what the date says, but it should be August 8th.
August 8th. And so that will all become part of the record and become that together with the PowerPoint will be the applicants' changes that they've suggested as a result of the meetings with neighbors.
I would say to you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I've been involved as the developer for 27 years, 90-plus projects. The level of cooperation between the neighbors and ourselves, as well as the administration, was as significant and productive as any effort we've ever had on a development, regardless of size or location.
Thank you. Are there questions for this witness from the Commission? Are there questions of these witnesses from anyone else? Did you have anyone else that you wanted to have speak?
No, sir.
Go ahead. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this matter? Please come forward and
Hi, I'm Kathy Shaw. I live at 1224 Hinman, so I directly back up to the proposed Trader Joe's, and I've been part of the group of people who've been working with the city and Terrico and Trader Joe's. And I want to say that we're all, first of all, we're very, very, very thankful that you've included us. I think the project is great. As it stands, we're very, very pleased, and I think everybody conceded a little bit, and we've ended up with a really wonderful project. All I have to say.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? It would be, let me see if there's any discussion by the commissioners before we move to the standards. Go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions. Are all of these agreements actionable, enforceable? For example, the one about the trucks not showing up before 6 in the morning.
If it's part of the Plan unit development ordinance,
you
it
know,
would be
I mean,
enforceable.
the trucks have to be somewhere before 6 in the morning. Are they going to be in some other, parked in some other street where they wait until 6 in the morning so they don't disturb their neighbors on Hinman? But, you know,
In front of your house.
in front of my house. That's my, what happens when this breaks down?
I'll let staff address this.
Dennis Marino, Manager of Planning and Zoning. Throughout the city, we have regulations related to truck deliveries and construction on site, so those are all enforceable and indeed are enforced. Certainly, if we get complaints about such a truck parking nearby in the neighborhood, we would sort of act on that, but we don't expect that to happen, but we do have a process for dealing with those.
I mean, I don't live nearby, so.
I think there's another question. No question?
Just a statement. That's
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, it is difficult to stand against this project. It seems like the developer has basically bent over backwards, and it seems like staff has also put a lot of work into this. And the alderman also has taken an active role in coming to where we are today. But I have to go on the record that although I'm for this project, I really believe that the community will be better served if Trader Joe were to be at a different section in Evanston. I agree with Scott. You guys have been very accommodating, and I think staff has also done a lot. But for a community that prides itself with being diverse and having economic vibrancy in different sections of our community, there is another property that is actually available. I don't have any association with the owner, or it's just that I know where it's at. And if indeed Trader Joe is in business to make money, which is the only reason why anybody would be in business, then it is prudent for one to be located at a site where traffic congestion is not an issue, where you can actually attract people from Lincolnwood, Skokie, Morton Grove, West Rogers Park, East Rogers Park, West Ridge, Ravenswood, and all those places. I think it makes sense. And I think if Trader Joe were also to be located there, it will serve as a catalyst. And I think Trader Joe would better be served there than a place where traffic is already, congestion is an issue. Again, I say this, and I find myself in a somewhat of a precarious position in that I like the proposal that is in front of me. Somebody has really put some time into it, and somebody has thought through all the logistics. And also, Taraco's reputation precedes it, so I know the commitments that have been made on the oaths will be fulfilled. But for the record, I think for the amount of money that the city is putting into this project, I think our interest, our economic development interest will be better served if the store was somewhere else. So.
If there are no other statements before the motion, I'd like to ask for a motion, and I'd like to ask that it incorporate the exhibits and the statements that were made tonight, including the PowerPoint presentation, with the exception of the lighting plan, and that it contain a recommendation that a lighting plan be incorporated into the final ordinance. A final plan hasn't been presented tonight, so we can't incorporate it into our action, but we can recommend that it be incorporated into the ordinance. I don't think we need to enumerate all of the conditions. We can just incorporate the testimony tonight by reference. And the effect of that is to make the conditions in the plan unit development enforceable. Sometimes plan unit developments are passed without putting in such conditions, and then they are not enforceable. Is there someone that would like to make a motion? I see Mr. Ford is smiling, so that must mean he's...
Mr. Ford ends up being the default maker of motions, it appears. I will move what the chairman said.
That's a shortcut. I will second.
So we have a motion to recommend this special use to the council and incorporate it into that motion as the testimony and description of what's proposed, including the exhibits described tonight and testimony tonight. Is there any discussion before we move to the standards? Hearing no further discussion, let's move to the standards. Everyone should have a copy of the standards in front of them. And we can start with the special use standards. The proposal is one of the special uses listed in the zoning ordinance for this district as a planned unit development. I think it is also consistent with the comprehensive plan, which provides for redevelopment in corridors where there are opportunities for commercial and mixed-use developments. Does anyone want to address the cumulative impact? I would suggest that there is no cumulative impact. The area is on Chicago Avenue, which is a commercial strip, designated for commercial development, and there is nothing with this no character of this special use which interacts with other uses, either permitted or existing in the area, to cause cumulative impact. We have a traffic study indicating the level of service will not be deteriorated and that the streets have the capacity to serve this development. There is a slight increase in the traffic during peak hours, but it's fairly limited. And I don't believe that there's any question with respect to the other public facilities and services. That also addresses item F, suggesting it's not going to cause undue traffic congestion. There are no significant historical and architectural resources on the site to be preserved, nor are there significant natural and environmental features. Staff has given us a report on the application indicating that it complies with the applicable regulations of the district, except to the extent that those are modified by the plan unit development. And there has been no indication that the proposal does not comply with the other regulations of the city, except to the extent that it's a plan unit development to be constructed as proposed. Are there any other findings with respect to the special use standards? That brings us to the general conditions for commercial district plan unit development. Are there anyone that proposes findings? I know that I am not the only one that has heard the testimony. We've had pretty extensive testimony about the way in which it's compatible with the surrounding development, and the changes in the proposal, which eliminate the use of the alley for deliveries and garbage pickup, go a long way to make it compatible with the surrounding development, as does the proposed 8-foot wall and the enclosure for trucks. Often where there are grocery establishments adjacent to residential areas, the truck noise, particularly the cooling systems on the truck, are not compatible with the residential development. But here the proposal incorporates an enclosed area where the delivery trucks will be unloaded, and I think that results in a compatibility with the surrounding development. There is no indication of any incompatibility with the commercial development along Chicago Avenue, and the design has been made to conform to the Chicago Avenue plan. The property is not a landmark property, and it is not in a historic district, so we don't have to make findings with respect to the Secretary of Interior standards. I think we've already addressed the comprehensive general plan as amended. In terms of the provisions listed. We've not talked about schools, and I can't see any impact on schools. We've addressed public services and facilities, traffic impact, environmental preservation is not applicable. Housing is not applicable. Land use intensity and land use we've addressed extensively. The character of the business district is consistent with what is proposed. Indeed, there are other groceries in the immediate area. We have the Chicago Avenue plan, and I think it's consistent with that plan. We've addressed commercial district. It increases the taxable value of land and buildings in the city. The general conditions are applicable and require no findings, I think. Brings us to site controls and standards for commercial district plan developments, which is page 4. Does anyone wish to address these issues? Careful attention has been given to the boundary between the residential district to the north and the development that's proposed, with the provision of a fence, 8-foot fence, and some vegetative screening on the fence. The landscaping has been designed consistent with the city requirements and the Chicago Avenue plan. The walkways certainly appear to form a safe, convenient system for pedestrian access, including an opening for pedestrian access in the northeast corner adjacent to the alley. The access points are off Chicago Avenue and are designed to permit a smooth traffic flow with controlled turning movements. The traffic report suggests there are minimum hazards to vehicular and pedestrian traffic. There is no indication that the proposal is inconsistent with the requirement for, where feasible, underground installation of utilities. We were presented on the first day with evidence regarding market feasibility, indicating that there is actually a market for the proposed development. There are no dwellings, so the provision G is not applicable. And the zoning administrator has not required additional studies, though this commission asked for and received traffic and appraisal studies. I don't believe we have a height increase of more than 30 feet. We don't have an increase in dwelling units. We don't have a change in the location and placement of buildings. And I don't remember, is there any increase in the floor area ratio? Decrease compared to what is there now. I've sort of gone through the standards, but perhaps there are members who wish to make other findings or propose other findings. Such a quiet commission. Is there any other discussion prior to voting on the matter? Hearing no discussion other than the word vote from one of the members, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Opposed? The recommendation passes. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Take a 5-minute break before we move to our next item of business. To the regulation of massage establishments. I believe there is someone from the city who will make a statement about this.
Melissa Klotz, zoning planner. After some time in the zoning committee, at this point, city staff recommends creating a zoning definition for massage and bodywork establishments. This will separate those businesses from the general retail services use that they are currently classified as in the zoning ordinance. We are not proposing any changes to the permitted or special use location zoning districts throughout the city. So all this will be doing at this point is creating a zoning definition to separate them from the general retail services. Related to this, a proposed license will be heading to likely the Human Services Committee for all establishment workers who are not licensed by the state, but that will not be in the zoning code, so it is not the purview of the Plan Commission.
Could you describe the submittals that are in the packet relating to this?
Yes, the packet materials describes the proposed definition and lists out the zoning districts where the establishments are currently allowed and where they will continue to be allowed in. And there's a proposed ordinance as well.
Are there any questions of the staff?
If somebody's licensed by the state, they also have to get a city license? No.
They are required to get a general business license.
General
yes.
business. So you'll be able to keep track to them demographically if you had an interest in doing that, just strictly through the licensing?
Theoretically, yes.
And the other license that you're going, if they're not licensed by the state of Illinois, that'll go through the Health and Human Services?
It will go through the committee process, so I can't say exactly how it will end up, but at this point, it sounds like it will be a general workers license for anyone who's not licensed by the state, which would primarily be body workers, and it will be for each individual who works at any establishment.
So if there's a non-traditional method of body working that no one's ever heard of, but somebody practices, they can still get a city license as a retail, or how would that work?
The licensing definition will be extremely broad. The license will not be based on the specific type of body work that's being done. It will be used more as a tool to create a license similar to the state-issued license for massage therapists that there currently is not an equal of at the state level.
So at this point, what's before us is the definition of a massage/bodywork establishment and the districts where that would be listed as a permitted or special use. The licensing question has not yet been addressed by the council or its subcommittee, and so it doesn't exist yet. Are there any questions or discussion of what is before us from the commission members?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think you've really cleaned it up compared to where we started on this.
To add to that, it has been an involved process with much of the massage and bodywork community, and I know there is at least one audience member here who would like to speak on behalf of that community.
Is there any member of the public who would like to address what's before us tonight? Have you been sworn?
No, but
Raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth before this, or affirm that you will tell the truth before this commission tonight?
I'm Corinne Peterson. I'm a resident of Evanston and a massage therapist here in the city as well. And I've been asked by Steve Rogney to read a letter. He couldn't be here tonight. So I'll just go ahead and read that. Steve Rogney is the director of the Zen Shiatsu Chicago establishment and has been very involved in this process. Thank you to the Plan Commission for your thoughtful deliberation resulting in the zoning definition of massage and bodywork establishments. I appreciate that this outcome does not subject any establishment owners to the special use zoning process. A detailed draft ordinance of a proposed massage and bodywork establishment license has been submitted to Melissa Klotz and Ken Cox, jointly drafted by myself, Tracy Smodila, and Sarah McLaughlin. It incorporates the best of the language used in other municipalities, such as Mount Prospect, to successfully drive organized criminals and human traffickers out of the massage and bodywork profession. This ordinance, if adopted and as drafted, would make it close to impossible for criminals to get an operational license for a storefront establishment. This establishment ordinance, which all storefront owners of primary use or mixed use establishments would need, is to be paired with a body worker registration ordinance. This ordinance, applying to individual practitioners who are not state licensed, would allow such individuals to be subject at a local level to criminal background checks and verification of valid professional liability insurance, among other criteria. A finished draft of this registration ordinance will be finalized by our team soon. If the Planning Commission wishes to make a formal proposal about the next step going forward, I suggest the following: that the Human Services Committee be tasked with the implementation of a massage and bodywork establishment licensing ordinance and a body worker registration ordinance. This is the outcome that would allow the professional therapists of Evanston to take the lead in self-generating operational guidelines that meet the needs of therapists and clients while effectively driving organized criminals out of our profession. Massage and bodywork are both recognized healthcare professions. Massage therapists are licensed by most states, and body workers are licensed by a growing number of states. As such, it is my feeling that the Evanston Human Services Committee, which handles matters relating to the public health, is the appropriate committee to implement regulation of all establishments and of professionals who are not yet state licensed.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? Is there a motion to recommend or not recommend the proposed definition and regulation changes contained in the memo and draft ordinance?
I'll make the motion to adopt the definition as defined and the zoning limited to the zones that were specified.
So there is a motion to adopt the definition and the proposed regulation changes.
I will second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 I vote aye. I think the discussion of this issue at the prior meetings is sufficient to support the findings with respect to this, and we don't need to go through amendment findings. That concludes the discussion of the zoning text amendment. Are there any committee reports?
Just one quick reminder, under committee, we typically have a comprehensive plan subcommittee meeting on the third Wednesday. It is the 22nd of August, as noted in the last meeting of that meeting.
And the time is
7:30 a.m., room 2403.
Is there anything else that needs to come before the commission? Hearing no one wanting to speak to anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. At
Congratulations to